Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another set of notes with Miss Dodge. Today we're going to do our African trade kingdoms notes, the next set of notes in our notebook. I can't remember what color they are anymore, but that's okay. We will skip our map as you guys don't have the textbook and you need the textbook to complete it. If you're really feeling some type of way, you can try and Google some maps if you want, but we'll be okay with not doing our map. I really love this set of notes. I think these African trade kingdoms are fascinating. Hopefully I don't get too off topic through these notes, but let's dive right in. So we have 5 trade kingdoms that we need to learn about. Yes, 5. Africa really steps up to join our trade networks during this time, and we have 5 major kingdoms that we need to learn about in this world of trade. First, we're going to talk about Axum. Then we're going to talk about Zimbabwe. And then we're going to talk about these 3. We kind of lump them together as the West African trade kingdoms. I smush them together really quick. I say Ghana, Mali, Songhai. But individually they are Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. We'll learn about each of them, but this is the order, and you will have to know the proper order. We'll talk about that all when we get there, though. But let's first talk about Axum. Axum is located on the eastern coast of Africa, just south of the Nile. The Nile? I know your ears perked up when you heard that, right? The Nile River. We know the Nile River. The Nile River is home to Egypt. That will become important for Axum just in a minute. Axum really steps onto the world stage and becomes a major trade stop somewhere around 200 AD. This, by the way, is the era that we are in. We are in the year 2020 AD or 2020 CE. Right? Those mean the same thing, basically. Now let's talk about Axum in Egypt. Axum makes a very important change that connects them with their northern neighbor. Axum converts to Christianity. Around 300 AD, Axum converts to Christianity and makes a stronger connection with that northern neighbor we just talked about, Egypt. By this point in time, Egypt has been conquered by the Romans, our good old friends the Romans, and the Romans have converted away from Roman mythology to, you guessed it, Christianity. And so this gives them that religious connection, Axum and Rome/Egypt, and increases their trade, right? We remember that the Roman Empire was huge. It's a lot of people in the Roman Empire. And being a major trade supplier of that large empire certainly can be very profitable, as it was for Axum. Okay? Next is Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is located in South Africa, Southern Africa, still on the east coast, but just more to the south, near the Indian Ocean. This location is fantastic for Zimbabwe because it means they are a major stop on the Arabian trade routes, the maritime trade routes with India. Remember how we talked about in our unit on Islam that they really take over, the Muslim population takes over as kind of middlemen for these trades. And so if we're talking about trade, especially in the Middle Ages, there's probably at least a stop in the Islamic Empire, if not something being traded by a Muslim trader, etc. And this is no exception. Zimbabwe is no exception. They are on the Arabian Sea trade routes with India, creating that kind of connection from faraway places. Okay. The capital of Zimbabwe is called Great Zimbabwe. Hopefully that's not too difficult for you to remember. It is usually what you'll find on the map. People will talk about Great Zimbabwe, the capital, more than they'll talk about the civilization of Zimbabwe. So if you get a little confused looking at maps, if you do that Google search, that's why. Zimbabwe later gets conquered by the British. Don't even get me started. about that. And they name it after the person who, quote unquote, discovered it, Cecil Rhodes, hence Rhodesia. They rename it Rhodesia after him. Don't even get me started. But eventually they gained their independence in the 1900s and they returned to their historical name, Zimbabwe. And so if you look at a map of Africa today, what Africa looks like today, you will find the country of Zimbabwe in the same spot, which is kind of interesting. It's a cool kind of thing. If anyone ever asked you where the name Zimbabwe comes from, you could say, well, I learned that in Miss Dodge's class. Okay. We have our West African kingdoms now. We're going to talk about our sub-Saharan West African kingdoms. Sub-Saharan means south of the Sahara Desert, right? Sahara. And sub is a prefix that means below, right? If something is subpar, that means it's not good enough. It's below what's expected of you. Right? This doesn't mean literally below the Sahara Desert. If I dug a hole through the Sahara Desert into the ground, am I going to find Ghana, Mali, and Songhai? No. Meaning on a map below, right? So the direction south of the Sahara Desert. And they are, again, in order here on our list, Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. There are a couple of ways to help you remember this order. Number one, they're in alphabetical order. You know me, I love the good alphabet. If you can remember the order of the alphabet, you can remember the order of our West African trade kingdoms. G, then M, then S. Ghana, Mali, Songhai. You can also remember my little sing-song memory trick and just say them very quick together. Ghana, Mali, Songhai. That's how I like to do it. You will need to know the order of these West African trade kingdoms in order to be successful, right? I'm going to ask you about it. Hint, hint, hint. So make sure we remember one of those two ways, the alphabet or my sing-song. Ghana, Mali, Songhai. All right? Now, they all appear in basically the same area, just at different time points in history. They also are different sizes. They start very small and they end up very large. The reason that they're all appearing in the same area is because it's a nice area to have a kingdom. It's very close to a river, which we know is an excellent idea because of the water for animals and the water for farming and the water for people. These particular kingdoms are located on the Niger River. Okay? Which, just like any other river, is a fantastic place because of everything that fresh water, flowing water provides. All three of these kingdoms. Now, if you are watching cartoons in the background and your brothers and sisters are screaming or something, and you're not really paying attention, if you only take away one thing from this note video, it's going to be this second bullet on this screen. All three of these kingdoms traded salt and gold. That's what's coming out of Africa at this time, salt and gold. It is very important that you know these things. Gold, obviously, people want gold, right? Even today, gold has value. At the time, though, it wasn't just for, jewelry and plates or whatever. Gold was literally money. Today, if you took coins, right, pennies, nickels, dimes, and you melt them down into the metals that they actually are, probably wouldn't get much more than what the coin was originally worth, right? If you melt down a penny, you're not going to find $10 worth of copper or whatever. It's going to be probably worth like literally a cent. Before that, though, in these olden times, coin money was literally made out of precious metals. The money you paid somebody was literally a piece of gold or silver. So having gold was literally having money. You paid people in gold or silver. We've also talked about why salt is important in our trade items. Note, people didn't have refrigerators. We really didn't have a lot of way to freeze our food or save our food for extended periods of time. We'd have ice houses, but only the very, very wealthy could afford to keep an ice house stocked. It's exactly what it sounds like. An underground, basically a basement that you filled with ice. If you couldn't afford that, then you used salt. Slathering something in salt, particularly meat, prevents bacteria from growing. Bacteria cannot grow on salt, and therefore the meat didn't rot, right? Bacteria doesn't get in there, diseases don't get in there, and the meat doesn't spoil. Eventually it will, but not as quickly. And so this was the way people basically refrigerated their food, is they just covered it in salt. Now, it preserves the meat, it doesn't rot, it doesn't get full of bugs and maggots and stuff, but it doesn't really taste like meat anymore. It just tastes like a butt ton of salt. However, you kind of dealt with this in order to preserve your food. So these are the two big things that are coming out of Africa. Again, if you remember nothing else from this video, please remember salt and gold, salt and gold, salt and gold. Number 3 would probably be iron. If I had to pick a third place item being traded, it would probably be iron, but salt and gold are our 1 and 2. Ghana is the first of our West African trade kingdoms. They last probably the longest time out of the 3, but they are also the smallest. They last from 300 to 1100 AD. We're getting closer to where we are in history. 1100 AD, we are in 2020 AD, so give you a frame of reference there. Now, as I said, it was the smallest of the 3 kingdoms, and not a ton happens, particularly that we care about. Ghana brings the kind of location onto the map, but in terms of particular places, cities, etc., we don't need to know a ton about them. Eventually, Ghana falls to Muslim traders who invade from the north and try to get the Ghanaian people to convert. They don't want to convert to Islam. They were very animistic, and they don't want to convert. And this kind of brings about their downfall. We've talked about animistic religions, animism, a little bit without really using that word. Animistic religions believe in like a connection between all living things, plants, animals, even kind of non-living earth elements like the wind, the sun, storms, etc. And they believe that humans are tapped into that usually. The best example I can give you of animism, sounds kind of weird, but it's true, is the movie Avatar, the one with all the blue people, right? Do you know what I'm talking about? If you don't, or if you do and want a refresher, try and find that. See if you can find that on, I don't know, YouTube or whatever. Avatar, with all the blue people. Their religion, all the little Avatar people, their religion is very much so animistic, right? They believe in connection between the trees and the animals and all the living things. They have their little braids that they connect to the animals with or something. Maybe I should go back and watch Avatar. I'm a little shaky on it. But one thing in particular I remember is the Avatar girl kills this jaguar thing to protect the new guy, right? And then she apologizes to it. She prays over it and apologizes for killing this jaguar thing. That's very much so an animistic kind of concept. Animistic religions, it's not that they don't believe that killing animals is wrong, right? They hunt, they have to survive, but they believe in making sure that it's purposeful, that killing wasn't wasted, right? By killing that jaguar to save the blue guy, she's not using that death. She's only saving the guy, right? She's not using it for food or for fur or whatever. She's just kind of killing it to save her friend. And so she's apologizing to it for killing it needlessly. That's very much so animistic. The Ghanaian people don't want to convert away from this. They want to keep their traditional religion, and the Muslim traders basically conquer them. Okay, and this is a picture of an old African-style building, right? So you can see here, these spikes are probably wood stakes. It's like kind of wood framing, but the walls are mud, right? This is mud bricking. That's all there really is. They're just south of the desert. There's not a lot of trees. There's not a lot of, what we would consider typical building materials. These stakes were probably imported, which means brought in from somewhere else. What they have around them is sand and dirt. Mix it with water, get yourself some mud. These stairs, by the way, look horrifying. I don't think I would ever climb those stairs. I'll be terrified. Following Ghana comes Mali. Mali is probably the most interesting of the three, and we'll talk about exactly why that is. Mali ends up absorbing the empire of Ghana and then creating a larger empire. And Mali, as an empire, lasts from about 1235 to about 1500 AD. The leaders of Mali did something that Ghana did not. They converted to Islam. They did not, though, require the people of Mali to convert. So it's kind of interesting there. That's something we see across history, letting people keep their traditional religion as a way of kind of maintaining peace and order. Their capital of Mali, Timbuktu, was world famous. It's still there today. In fact, there's a country of Ghana, there's a country of Mali. There is no country of Songhai, unfortunately, today. Timbuktu is still there. It was world famous. It was a huge metropolitan area. Think about New York City today, right? Full of people, full of businesses and buildings and noise and people yelling all the time and buying things and stuff. That's what Timbuktu was like. Now, obviously, it wasn't as large as New York City is today, but it was a major, major trade capital, especially considering the technology and the communication at the time, right? Think about how long ago this was, and for a city to be so large and so world famous, that's a big deal. Here is another example of some West African architecture. Again, you can see the kind of wooden spikes framing it, and then kind of outside, probably on the inside too, mud. Dirt and mud. Really cool building, so. Now, we're going to talk about why I love Mali so much. Mali had a very famous leader named Mansa Musa. Mansa means king, right? That's the title. Musa was his name, right? So like President Musa, King Musa, right? They just called their leader Mansa. Mansa Musa is so cool, absolutely so cool. Mansa Musa is believed to be the richest man in history. The richest man from all the people before him, the richest man at the time, and the richest person since. To date, out of all of the people that lived on this earth, we think that Mansa Musa was the richest, and by a lot, too. It's not even a close call. Let me give you an example. So today, one of, if not the richest man in the world, is Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos owns Amazon, company Amazon. Last time I checked, Jeff Bezos was worth about $1.5 billion. That is a lot of money. Not million, billion. That is so much money. Mansa Musa was worth 3 times that much money. Oh my goodness. We believe Mansa Musa was worth $400 billion. That's a lot of money. 3 times the richest man right now. That's nuts. Let me show you a little bit more to kind of wrap your head around this. Okay? 400,000 million billion. $400 billion. Okay? Let's round up. Let's say I make $50,000 a year. Okay? How many years would I have to work to earn $400 billion? 8 million. I would have to work for 8 million years in order to earn as much money as Mansa Musa had. What? That's nuts! That is so much money. Mansa Musa, he spent it. Man, did he spend it. He spent it everywhere. Mansa Musa, he was Muslim. So one time he makes the Hajj. Some of you might have read about this in your web quest that you did about African trade kingdoms. He makes the Hajj, right? Those 5 pillars of Islam. He's making that pilgrimage to Mecca. He travels to Mecca. He brings like thousands of people with him, right? Like the people who like take care of the camels, and the people who wash his clothes and help him get dressed, and the people who cook his food, and then like all of his friends and family and just like other servants and stuff. He brings like 1,000 people with him on this trip. He spends so much money, he actually devalued gold. He spent so much gold that the price, how much gold was worth, went down because there was so much of it. That's insane that one person could devalue gold simply by spending it. It's nuts. I can't even express to you. Hopefully you're picking up on how rich this man was. Absolutely insane. He used to just give gold. He was like, "Oh, I really like you. Here, have some gold. Like, I like your jokes. Here, have some gold. Oh, that's a great outfit. Have some gold." And you're like, "Oh, that was a really cool story that you told me about crossing the Sahara Desert. Here, have some gold." And he would just give people gold. Nuts. That's absolutely nuts. He also was a pretty decent leader, like super rich and everything, but also he did quite a lot to improve the culture of Mali. He supported the arts because he had just had a butt ton of money lying around. He was like, "Sure, I'll make some art." And it kind of puts Mali on the world map, makes Mali a major trade stop, not only for buying and selling goods, but just for kind of in general being a place to travel to. Mansa Musa kind of brings about the end of the Mali Empire, not on accident, not on purpose, kind of on accident, because the people who took over after him really couldn't handle the empire that he kind of constructed, and they couldn't live up to his reputation, if you will. And the Mali Empire, unfortunately, just kind of collapses. But Mansa Musa is still such a cool person. The richest man in history, was African. They have artwork of him. That's how world famous he is. This is an Arabic map. If you look very closely, it's Arabic writing on the map, and they've literally drawn him onto the map. Not just written the word Mali or whatever. They've drawn Mansa Musa onto the map. And just so you know exactly who he is, they've also got him in this awesome gold crown, just holding a lump of gold, right? Like, in case you got a little confused about who is this man on this map. Oh, that's Mansa Musa because he's covered in gold. There he is. Okay? This is Africa, by the way. This is what this is showing you. This is the Atlantic. This is the Iberian Peninsula. So this would be today Portugal, and this is Spain. And then this is our Mediterranean Sea we've talked about. Okay? And they literally drew him onto the map. That's how famous this man was. That's how absolutely world famous this man was. Absolutely fascinating. Richest man in the world, Mansa Musa. Totally cool. And then we'll finish our trade kingdoms with Songhai. Songhai is the last of the 3, lasting from 1464 to 1591 AD, right? Look at these dates. If you know anything about a little bit later world history, Jamestown is about to happen, right? That's getting a little into U.S. history. I'll see y'all later for that. But we're getting into pretty modern stuff here, considering. Songhai takes over basically Not exactly, but most of where Mali was, and then added some kind of lumpy territory closer to the west. Songhai's religion kind of does a little bit of both of what Ghana and Mali had done. They take Islam and they absorb Islam, but they also kind of combine in some traditional elements, some animistic elements, some tribal elements. They're a really cool kind of mix of all of this stuff. Something interesting about Songhai, they trade slaves. Songhai was the kingdom that traded slaves to Europeans who then took them to this quote unquote new world in the Americas and the Caribbean and the colonies to work on large scale plantations for profit, which is kind of crazy. They would kidnap people from farther inland in Africa, bring them to coastal port towns where they would be sold for stuff, right? Clothes, furniture, like finished items that had been made in Europe. And then the kidnapped slaves were then sent to work on plantations, usually in like the Caribbean islands or in like southern English colonies, what later becomes the United States, for plantations in the south. Songhai eventually falls to Morocco. Morocco invades them in 1591, bringing about the end of Songhai and ending our kind of thread of West African trade kingdoms. And that is that, friends. Be sure to answer the exit ticket question that's posted on here about these notes, and make sure you have filled in your notes. Go back through the notes if you need to fill in blanks that you're missing if I've gone too quickly for you, because we will have a quiz this week. Fantastic. Goodbye, everyone.